الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده سبحانه وتعالى حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا دائما مباركا فيه ملء السماوات وملء الأرض وملء ما بينهما وملء ما شئت يا ربنا من شيء بعد. أهل الثناء والمجد أحق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد. اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. لك العتبى حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الحبيب المصطفى محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه ومن اهتدى بهديه وعمل بسنته إلى يوم الدين. وارض اللهم عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آمين. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of heavens and earth. I thank Allah for his endless and countless blessings. I say alhamdulillah every minute of the day for the blessings that I enjoy while knowing and the blessings that I enjoy unbeknownst to me. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make each and every one of us worthy and deserving of his ni'mah. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship save Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Allah's final prophet and messenger, the bearer of glad tidings, the carrier of the torch of light, Allah's favor upon humanity. I thank Allah for the blessing that is Muhammad. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us strong on the path of Muhammad and to keep us steadfast in the footsteps of Muhammad. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who enter Jannah in his company. Allahumma ameen. I ask Allah to extend his blessings to the Prophet's family and descendants, to the Prophet's companions and followers, and the men and women that walk in their footsteps. And I ask Allah to include us with them. Ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the greatest scholars of Mecca, Ata ibn Abi Rabah, was historically known to always get himself in trouble with the political establishment. Now, the same cannot be said any longer about the scholars of Mecca, unfortunately, who are doing the bidding of the tyrants for the most part. And those of them who dare to speak up languish as we speak in the darkness of dungeons in Saudi Arabia. But Ata ibn Abi Rabah was a man of a different metal. He was a scholar of the Quran, he was a scholar of Hadith. He studied with Aisha radiallahu anha, with Abu Hurairah, with Abdullah ibn Abbas, with Ibn Umar, and other such companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amongst his students, just so that you understand the caliber of the man, people like Abu Hanifa, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq ibn Muhammad, Malik ibn Dinar, and a great many other scholars, including Abdul Rahman al-Awza'i, Abu Umar, alayhim jami'an ridwanullahi ta'ala. Now, people came once to Abdullah ibn Abbas, the Sahabi, the Prophet's cousin, in order to inquire and ask him a few questions. And with an astonished face, he responded to them and he said, Atastaftuni wa indakum ibn Abi Rabah. You come to me asking me questions about the deen, and Ata ibn Abi Rabah still lives in your midst? Are you crazy? I don't have more knowledge than him. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, he's the father of Ja'far as-Sadiq, alayhim jami'an ridwanullah, once said, خُذُوا مِنْ عَطَاءَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Take as much as you can from the knowledge of Ata, because he's not going to last forever. I was studying his biography recently, and I came across something incredible that Abu Amr Abdul Rahman al-Awza'i said about him. I will talk about Imam Awza'i later. There is a beautiful story about him that I need to tell you. But Imam Awza'i said, and he was a student of Ibn Rabah, he said, كان ابن رباح أرضى الناس عن الناس. You know this man, Ata? He used to be the most self-sufficient when it comes to other people. He did not need other people. He did not need validation from other people. He did not worry so much about the happiness and the satisfaction and the joy of other people. He realized that he's not part of a popularity contest. He needed to say what is haqq, and it doesn't matter. كان ابن أبي رباح أرضى الناس عن الناس ولم يكن يشهد مجلسه إلا 7 أو 8. He used to have this majlis, this dars, this halaqa of ilm, this knowledge, study circle, so to speak, at the masjid, every single day. On average, Imam Awza'i says, on average, there will be between 7 to 8 students in attendance. Now you think of Abu Hanifa, for example, there would be thousands attending his halaqa in his masjid in Iraq. But Ata ibn Abi Rabah, in Mecca, he lived and died in the city of Mecca, there would be on average 7 to 8 people in attendance. And I've wondered about this a lot. I asked myself, if I go on for 3 or 4 weeks with only 7 or 8 people coming to Jum'ah, it would be impossible to sustain it. Like we would shut it down. If you start an event and consistently getting 5 or 6 or 7 people coming, you will say, well, the community doesn't want it. What's the point of organizing it? But for Ata ibn Abi Rabah, it did not matter. What mattered to him was, I need to deliver the responsibility that I have. One day he came to Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, he was the Khalifa of the Umayyads. And he said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Commander of the Faithful, I need a favor from you. So he says, Ya Aba Muhammad, please ask me anything. And he said, you need to increase the ataya, you need to increase the favors that the state, that the government bestows upon the people of Mecca, the custodians of the 2 mosques, Mecca and Medina. We need more from the government. So Hisham ibn Abdul Malik decided to issue him whatever he needed. And then he asked him, أَلَكَ عِنْدَنَا حَاجَةً أُخْرَى? Is there anything else I can do to you? Is there anything else I can do for you? So Ibn Abi Rabah stared him straight in the face. And he said to the Khalifa, Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, and he was not known necessarily to be nice and to well receive advice either. He had killed people before who dared to object him. He looked him straight in the eyes and he said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Commander of the Faithful, لَقَدْ أُولِدْتُ وَحِيدًا وَتَمُوتُ وَحِيدًا وَتُحْشَرُ وَحِيدًا وَلَا يَقِفْ مَعَكَ أَحَدٌ مِّنْ هَؤُلَاءِ أَمَامَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. You were born alone, and you will die alone, and you will stand before God on the day of judgment alone. And this big entourage of viewers, all these people around you that are kissing up to you, none of them will stand next to you when you are before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Hisham ibn Abdul Malik got emotional from this statement. And he's known to be angry when people gave him feedback. And he decided to give the Imam some money. And Ata ibn Abi Rabah refused. He said, do you want me to take a payment because I rendered you the advice that in the Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And he walked away. The attitude of Ibn Abi Rabah made him obviously relatively unpopular because he was very honest, he was very truthful. He said it as it is. He did not mince words. He did not equivocate. He did not try to make himself popular by issuing the right fatwas to the right people. Always, always, always in trouble because of this. And here's the thing. Ibn Abi Rabah died about 1300 or 1350 years ago. What do we learn from this today? What do we learn from this today? Here's what we learn from this today. Our lives, as people who live in the modern age, our lives are defined by that lust for validation. Our lives are defined by wanting that nudge of acceptance from other people. We are incapable of doing anything unless it's popular, unless it's supported, unless other people like it. We gauge our success not based on the veracity of our ideas and principles and values, rather how people receive them. How many likes I am getting on social media. A great idea is shared thousands of times. It's become a popularity contest. People are now crammed in this virtual, made-up center that they have created. right? Have you heard that word before? We all need to be moderate, right? All in the center. Everyone is crammed in this so-called center. You know why? Because they have lost the taste for battle. Because no one wants to take a stance anymore. So they keep cramming with each other in this wide, large traffic that is called the center. They don't want to take any positions that would make them unpopular. So they compete with each other for exhausted ideas and pre-digested solutions that other people have generated, and they adopt that. I want you to take a look at your social media accounts today. You don't need to answer my question. You don't answer to me, you answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But take a look at your social media accounts, and I guarantee it, 95% of the people on social media accounts that follow you are people who probably agree with you on most of your ideas. Because you lust for the likes. And when people oppose you publicly, you get so upset and you might actually block them, right? We do that, don't we? We do that all the time. We've become so intolerant to disagreement that we will go out of our way to avoid that disagreement from happening in the first place. Because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to judge anyone. I don't want to say any words that will be scrutinized. I just want validation. I want to post a picture of myself eating a sandwich somewhere, and I want people to respond and say, "Oh, you look so gorgeous today." That's all I want. If somebody tells you, "Why are you putting yourself out there like that?" you're going to get so upset. So you cut those people off so you receive no opposition whatsoever from anyone. One of my teachers back in the day used to say, if your success is defined by how many friends you make, your greatness is defined by how many enemies you make. Why? Tell me one great person in history that did not generate a truckload of enemies. Anyone that stands for something of value, of meaning, of purpose will be attacked and will be hated by some. That is a part of your journey in this world. That is how it is. You try to keep pleasing people, I guarantee it, you will end up standing for absolutely nothing. Ibn Abi Rabah and people like him taught us that great lesson. That it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is worth pleasing in the end. It doesn't matter how unpopular you become. It doesn't matter if your ideas are unorthodox. It doesn't matter. Because what matters at the end of the day is asking yourself whether you're doing the right thing or not. And whether you're sincere about it or not. And whether you're not following your whim or your passion, or you're just being arrogant, because some people are. They're just being arrogant. They know they're wrong, and they still take that stance. Because they're driven by arrogance. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about someone who, with humility, determined that a certain path or a certain position is the right position, and he takes that position. Prays that there's no opposition, but when the attacks happen, it does not faze you and it does not sway you from doing the right thing. I want you to examine historically. Every great idea was met with tremendous opposition. Every great social movement was met with tremendous opposition. Every invention was mocked at and laughed at. They called Einstein crazy. The Prophet ﷺ was fought 22 years of his career. That's how it is. You want to achieve something great in this world, determine your own values and pray on them, and then take the stance that is needed. And don't worry about some people getting upset. People who like and support what you do will gravitate towards you. And people who don't, they will just walk away. But if you try to constantly find ways to please people and to say what makes them happy and to say what makes them satisfied, I guarantee you, you will end up making everyone upset at you at some point. Because that is how life is, brothers and sisters. One of the things that I read recently was correspondences that went back and forth between Aisha radiallahu anha and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Remember during the days of the fitna, after Uthman ibn Affan was assassinated, and of course Uthman was an Umayyad, so Muawiyah used that as an excuse in order to basically revolt against Ali ibn Abi Talib. So letters were going back and forth between Aisha al-Mu'mineen radiallahu anha and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. And even though Aisha herself was opposed to what she considered to be the lenient policies of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, she did not entirely side with Muawiyah. So she kept sending letters back and forth to Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan in order to calm him down a little bit, to temper his attitude. And in one of the letters, she said this to him: من التمس رضاء الله بسخط الناس أغناه الله عن الناس ومن التمس رضاء الناس بسخط الله وكله الله إلى الناس. Those who seek the pleasure of Allah at the expense of people getting angry at them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them from people's reaction. And those who seek the satisfaction of other human beings at the expense of Allah's pleasure, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will delegate all of their affairs to other people. Allah will dust His hands off these people. You seek their pleasure and satisfaction? Go ahead. People are whimsical. They change their minds all the time. They will wake up one morning with an opinion, and then a week later they'll change that opinion. And you're going to be lusting after them for the rest of your life, trying to please them, and it's a fool's errand. It won't work. It won't work. Going back to Imam al-Awza'i. Imam al-Awza'i was a student of Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Even though he was Lebanese himself, one of very, very few scholars in Islamic history that actually came from Lebanon. He's actually buried in Beirut. Imam al-Awza'i was this great scholar who sort of like had his own madhab. In fact, al-Awza'i at some point was more popular than Abu Hanifa. His madhab extended all the way to North Africa. But Imam al-Awza'i was also very unpopular because he learned from his teacher. You got to take the right stance. Even if it gets you in trouble. You got to take the right stance. So, one of those days, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, who was the Khalifa of the Abbasis, he decided to punish all Lebanese Christians, and yes, they used to live there for over 1,000 years. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur decided to punish tens of thousands of Lebanese Christians because a small band of those Christians revolted against the state. And Imam al-Awza'i used all of his resources. He used his pulpit. He organized fundraising events. He summoned local governors and mayors of neighboring cities in order to stand up against the Khalifa himself. And to say, we will never allow you to get your hands on the Christian minority in our city. That's not going to happen. Not on my watch. So the Abbasis said to him, what do you care? He said, of course I do. These are people that are protected by the covenant of Islam. You cannot punish all of them just because a small group of them have committed what you consider to be a revolt. You cannot do that. And believe it or not, to this day, Imam al-Awza'i in Lebanese culture, he's considered to be the one that unified Lebanon. In fact, they say that on the day of his funeral in Beirut, there were more Jews and Christians in attendance of the funeral than Muslims. SubhanAllah. This is how much they honored him because he went against the grain. Because he was a man of principle. And of course, people of principle, brothers and sisters, they do what is right and then they just walk away. They're not waiting for praise. They don't worry about disparagement. They don't care for people's feedback. They just please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do the right thing. If others are walking with them and treading with them the path, that's okay. If they walk alone, it is also okay. Sa'id ibn Jubayr stood in front of the tyrant of Iraq, Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, on the day of his execution. Literally about half an hour before he was executed. And Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf still invites him, give me the pledge of allegiance. Because he rose against the Umayyads because of their tyranny. Give me your pledge of allegiance and I will let you go. He said, I will never do that. I will never do that. My hands that make tasbih and mention Allah's name every day, I will never use it to sign a false allegiance to you and tyrants like you. I will never do that. I will never dishonor myself and my legacy. So Hajjaj ibn Yusuf would tell him, لَقَدْ شَقَقْتَ الْعَصَى وَفَارَقْتَ الْجَمَاعَةِ. You have divided the community, and you've walked away, you've strayed away from the jama'ah, from the ummah, from the community. And what was the response of Sa'id? He said to him, Al-jama'atu man wafaqa al-haqqa walau kana wahidan. True jama'ah is someone that is on the path of righteousness, even if it's one person. Even if it's one person. And he was executed just a few minutes later, right? That is the attitude of people that leave a legacy behind them, that change the world, that carve out new highways in our universe. And here's the thing. I wanted to say that this doesn't just apply to individuals. It also applies to groups, it applies to people, it applies to communities. There are communities who are strong in their values, who are pioneers in their efforts. And wallahi, I wanted to take this chance today to tell each and every one of you how grateful I am for our blessed community, alhamdulillah. How grateful I am for each and every one of you, for your support, for your love, for putting up with us over the last 4.5 years, for believing in the vision of Tarbiya, for going against the grain, for being with us when we were very, very small and insignificant, for taking a chance and taking a risk by this association. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you. And it gives me a great honor today to say that we finally have the keys, alhamdulillah, to the new building. This is the key fob that opens the building electronically right here. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're making more of these. And this is an incredible conclusion to this chapter of our journey. When we started in Rockland in about 4.5 years ago, there was about 20 people coming to Salat al-Jum'ah. And then here we are 4.5 years later, moving into a 32,000 square foot building on 9 acres with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In my wildest dreams, I would have never imagined that. I thought this would probably take 10 years. But here you are, because there's a community that took a stance. That's what matters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards people who take a stance. Think of all the dropouts that left college in order to march on in life and start some of the most significant corporations on the face of this planet. Think of Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all these guys. Innovative people who saw the world going in one direction and they decided to take a different direction just because they thought that this is the right way to go. It takes a lot of guts to do that. It takes a lot of audacity to do that. And I'm absolutely proud of my community, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We live in very difficult times, very challenging times, but they're also very rewarding times because the prize is proportionate to the effort, brothers and sisters. And everything that was achieved in the last 5 years with a couple of staff members, I can only imagine what will be done in the next 5 years with 50. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our hearts, to fill our hearts with humility. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer our prayers and to keep our intentions clear and pure. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our brotherhood and to bring us closer to each other as one unified community. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands and speak to Allah Azza wa Jal from the heart. أدعو الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وقائد الغر الميامين محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وارض اللهم عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم آمين. My dear brothers and sisters, I shared with you today a story of a great teacher, of a great scholar who was known amongst his contemporaries and later on in history, not by the amount of knowledge that he had, rather by the very, very small number of students that attended his weekly majlis in the masjid in Mecca. And I said that Ata ibn Abi Rabah, although he studied with the Sahaba and he taught the Tabi'een, but he was relatively unpopular with the political establishment because of the positions that he took. Principled positions, driven by values, driven by what is right and what is wrong, not by whim. And I said that to this day, the legacy of Ibn Rabah endures amongst us because he never allowed himself to just do what other people want him to do. He dared to sing a different tune. He dared to march to the beat of a different drum. He created his own legacy. He created his own trend, when you think about it, because we live in the days of trendy things, right? We all follow trends. And it's fascinating how those trends develop. I always ask my kids, when the fashion changes, right? When the fashion changes, I always ask my kids, why do you think that the fashion changes from leggings to skinny jeans to, wider jeans to shorts to, why does it change? And they don't understand. Some people say that fashion changes because fashion designers, they have a large inventory of certain items. And if you keep wearing the same type of stuff, right? You don't want to keep someone with a certain pair of pants forever. So when you wear a certain pair of pants for 1 year, then you need to change the fashion so that you realize that you need to buy something else because your pair of pants it's now going out of fashion. So you have to go buy something else, and they keep recycling them. I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, there is a finite number of things that they can do to our clothes. So they keep recycling them over the years, and we keep falling for it, and we don't understand why the fashion happens, right? One day, everyone on social media is talking about China. So what do? We talk about China. And then the other day, everyone is talking about Burma. We talk about Burma. And then the other day, everyone is talking about Palestine, so we talk about Palestine. One day, it's police brutality and Black Lives Matter, so we're talking about Black Lives Matter. Another day, it's #MeToo. Everyone is talking about #MeToo, right? No one just stops and asks themselves, what am I doing? And why? And to what end? And for what purpose? And what does this do to my dunya and my akhirah? How does this help me and help my family? Is this the right thing or not? We don't do that. We just love those Google-generated algorithms. We love them. That's the God that most people follow today. They listen to the algorithms, to the artificial intelligence of Google and Facebook, more than they listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't that true? Because Allah does not share trends with us. Spiritual truths have been stable, the same, for thousands of years. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, it's all the same. But the God of algorithms keep changing his mind every single day. And what's worse is that we keep following him. That's the unfortunate truth. One of the ahadith, and let me end with this. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that on the Day of Judgment, he sees prophets with their followers. And I mentioned this hadith before. فَيَأْتِ النَّبِيُّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّهْطُ. Some prophets will be followed by a large number of people. وَيَأْتِ النَّبِيُّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّجُلَانِ. And some prophets will be followed by 2 people. وَيَأْتِ النَّبِيُّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ أَحَدٌ. And some prophets, after lengthy careers preaching their people, they stand on the Day of Judgment with no followers whatsoever. How do they feel? How do they feel? Prophets sent by God, preaching to their people for decades and not a single follower. But that's the thing. Prophets are not interested in popularity contests. They deliver the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's up to people to decide whether they want to follow or not. You would like to follow trendy stuff? Go ahead. I mean, you have your full free will to do that as a human being. Allah granted you that right. But you want to heed the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make better choices? Well, the door is wide open. And I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying, and I need to conclude with this qualification, okay? I am not saying that people's opinions are irrelevant. I'm not saying that either. Because some people are just stubborn. They're like, you know what? I'm going to tell you how it is. I don't care if you follow or not. It's none of my business. This attitude also exists. I mean, there's the attitude of schmoozing to people and trying to please them, but the other end of the spectrum is just as bad. being callous, being disconnected from people, right? Looking down upon them, being judgmental all the time, right? I just need to tell you what God said. You know what? I don't care if you follow or not. The Imam said, take a stance. I'm just taking a stance. But the thing is, when you take a stance with the humble spirit of someone who cares, genuinely cares about people. Yes, don't change your values and don't adjust your positions in order to please others. However, find the best way possible to relay it. Use love, use compassion, use wisdom. Find the right time to give advice, right? Even the Quran tells us about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It is only through the mercy of God that you act so tenderly with them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he needs to adjust his own behavior and be a little tender, a little lenient with people. Isn't that beautiful? He didn't say, well, you know what? Here's God's man. Here's the Quran. I'm going to leave it on this table. Come read it. Okay? The truth is right there. Figure it out. The Prophet ﷺ finds the most beautiful ways, lenient, tender ways in order to get to people's hearts. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were harsh, if you were offensive, they would have dispersed away from you. They would have walked away from you. So that is not a good outcome either. We have to be careful, especially all of us, brothers and sisters, the community, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You are the carrier of the last portion of the truth. You cannot afford to offend people as you relay that truth. You have to find the most beautiful way to do it. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove and the attacks happen, it's okay. Stand your ground. Stand your ground. But don't go around inviting trouble either. Don't go around poking people. You see, we need to qualify all of this so that we're doing it the way the Prophet ﷺ did it. And I say this today again because our community embarks upon a new chapter of our journey. We embark upon a new chapter. That new building is going to come with massive responsibilities. All of you will have non-Muslim friends. You will have family members, people who are not connected to the deen. We want to make sure that they all come to Jum'ah, that their children come to the programs, that our non-Muslim friends are invited to our projects and events and activities. We need to open our place so that we truly show everyone around us that the presence of Muslims in this part of the world makes this community better. That's the message that we need to be sending. And that's going to require a lot of diplomacy, a lot of wit, a lot of courage, a lot of audacity, right? A lot of wisdom, and a lot of principled decisions, and a lot of stances to take. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our community and our ummah strong. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our hearts tender and lenient. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us take a strong stance and to avoid hurting other people in the process as much as we can. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us patience and perseverance as we tread the journey of this world. Ya Allah, we ask you to strengthen our shoulders, to strengthen our backs, so we're able to carry our responsibilities. Ya Allah, we ask you to help each and every one of us find value in the teachings of Islam. Ya Allah, we ask you to help each and every one of us take a stance that will serve us on the day of judgment and not hurt us. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us among the most loving and the most righteous and the strongest of people. Ya Allah, we ask you to help us raise a banner for Islam in this part of the world and to bring people closer to it. And Ya Allah, we ask you to make us instruments of healing, to make us catalysts of good in our society. Ya Allah, we ask you to help us invite people to your path with wisdom, gentleness, and love. Ya Allah, we ask you to establish the Muslim community as a community of righteousness and discipline, to help us stand up against injustice, to help us be there for those who need our help. Ya Allah, we ask you, as you've gathered us here, to bless our new community, to bless our new facility, our new masjid, and to help us use it in ways that will be pleasing to you, that will take our community to the next level. And Ya Allah, as you've gathered us here, we ask you to gather all of us in the highest level of Jannah. Allahumma ameen.